Greetings and welcome to a Tomorrow's World webcast. I'm Wallace Smith and it's wonderful to have you here. I have a little bit of pop culture in mind right now. I don't like to recommend movies, let alone on a forum like the internet or something, because it just seems to me bad policy. You recommend one movie, you think it's a good movie, and actually it's a bad movie, or vice versa. However, I do confess to being aware of movies. Movies are a part of our cultural expression, and sometimes they say wonderful things, sometimes bad things. In particular, the Avengers movie that's out currently features one character who I'd like to refer to right now, which is Captain America. Often referred to as quite the Boy Scout character. He stands for great values and doing the right thing all the time. And the movie that's out currently, Avengers Age of Ultron, apparently has him in the middle of a conversation with another character. And the other character is trying to justify some choices that he's made. Kind of going out on his own, not really working with the team, but being an individual without really considering the judgment of everybody else, all of his counselors and friends. And so the Captain America character is coming up to him, trying to explain that he shouldn't do that, that teamwork is something they believe in, that working together is a value that they hold. And then the other character, trying to justify himself, asks Captain America, but what if we lose? What if we stick to that value and we lose? And the response of the Captain America character is, well, then we lose together. That is, you still hold to the value. You don't sacrifice it for convenience, that it's worth the sacrifice. Now, I bring that up in particular because of recent items concerning the Boy Scouts in the news. To me, it's quite an irony that Captain America is referred to as a Boy Scout type character. And here we have from May 21st, 2015, really just not too long ago, this article from the Los Angeles Times quoting Robert M. Gates, the president of the Boy Scouts of America, really a former CIA director, Secretary of Defense, someone actually, in a lot of ways, I've admired things that I've read about him. But we have him making a major concession. If you understand Boy Scout policy, it used to be that they would not allow homosexuals to be a part of scouting. It disagreed with the values that they had. One of the things that you agree to as a scout is to be morally straight. Well, they try to compromise. They try to allow homosexual scouts, but then not allow them to be leaders, and wouldn't allow them to participate in adult leadership in the scouts. Well, like any kind of compromise like that, it never really satisfied anyone. And if anything, they've come under increasing scrutiny. And so Robert M. Gates, the president of the Boy Scouts of America, gave a major address in which he said the following. Essentially, let me say, he was trying to say that we should give up and we should go ahead and accept homosexuals at all levels of scouting, including making them leaders of our scouts. And here was his reasoning. He said, I truly fear that any other alternative will be the end of us as a national movement. He didn't talk about really embracing this value. He didn't talk about how it was the right thing to do, that it's a good thing. And if he did, let me say this. I do want to give him some credit. Perhaps in my ignorance, I didn't see those comments referenced in the news media. But he said, for instance, we can act on our own or we can be forced to act. But either way, I suspect we don't have a lot of time. Well, it seems to me if you're acting because you know you're going to be pressed to make this decision anyway, really what is the difference? You are still being forced to act. Notice he's acting on fear, not on values. He's not saying their values have changed, but simply society is going to force us to accept this or disband us as an organization. We need to go ahead and accept it. Quite the opposite of the stand taken in the movie, at least, by Captain America. Now, others, when I've brought this up, have pointed out to me that the movie version of Captain America would probably himself be a defender of homosexual rights and all the rest, but that's a discussion and a webcast for another time. That concept that we stick with what is right no matter what the rest of the world is doing and no matter the consequences was absolutely absent from Mr. Gates' discussion. It's really interesting. If you read the Scout Oath, it starts, on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country. And when I read comments like this by Mr. Gates, To me, what it broadcasts is, you know what? Those values are negotiable. As long as you let us continue being scouts, continue to have an organization, well, we can negotiate all the rest of those values. It's startling, and there was a verse in Scripture, in prophecy, that really leapt out at me at the time. And it is a prophecy that does refer to the United States, that does refer to nations like the United States. God says in Ezekiel 22 and verse 30, "So I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found no one." Now, what's he talking about here? In our modern day, the idea of standing in a gap, what does that really mean? We use it as an English idiom, standing in the gap. But what does it mean? Well, I come from Texas. And in Texas, part of our background, it's woven into our DNA and our blood, is the stand at the Alamo, this small fort in which a few Texans fought off all of these invaders, realizing they were going to die in the attempt as it came to a certain point. You understand, in ancient days, the wall around your city or town was your defense. It was part of your defense. You'd have a huge wall that would be helping to keep invaders at bay. And so often part of their goal was to destroy part of that wall. Then all the rest of your army could focus their attention on flooding through that wall to make it in. It's a moving verse for me, because you have to understand what it means, what he's asking for. If you were defending, say you were there at the Alamo and you were defending the wall, trying to keep the invaders at bay, and all of a sudden there was a gap, and you realize that gap is going to be the end of me and all of my comrades, to be the one who chose to stand in that gap was certain death. That's the kind of value God says He's looking for. Someone that says, right is right and wrong is wrong, and I am willing to stand in the gap no matter the consequences for what is right. God is still looking at this time for someone to stand in the gap for America, someone who may slow the impending doom that we're bringing on ourselves. Will you be that person? Will I be that person? One thing I think we know from the news is that it won't be the Boy Scouts standing in that gap. I hope this has been profitable to you, and I hope you check out our other material on tomorrowsworld.org and on Facebook and Twitter.